So today I'll be talking about Die by Kieron Gillen. Got the 4 volumes of the first sort of arc of sorts. I've found out about this from the Weekly Planet Boys, Mason. He said he was reading it, and also they made a sequel called Die Loaded, which started November 2025, so there'll be probably one issue per month from then, so it'll be might be over by March, the first arc anyway. So this can be described as Dark Fantasy Medieval Narnia. We're following 6 teenagers. They go over to Solomon's house, or Saul, and he has a new game called Die, and it's very similar to Dungeons and Dragons, he says, but all of his friends show up. There's Dominic. He plays as a woman in the game and creates a sort of unique power, and there's Angela. So they all basically go in there and they create their new character models. So Solomon is the master. He's kind of like their guide, but he's also a character. Dominic is a dictator but wants to be a woman. So she basically has a power of manipulation one at a time, a powerful sorceress of sorts with manipulation powers. And there's like pros and cons to that as well. And then her sister Angela is a Neo, which is kind of like a super hacker. However, her powers are so overpowered that she needs to have fair gold, which has to be harvested daily and disappears at dawn. So, you know, she can teleport, she can shoot things, hack things, create familiars, but she has to have a plentiful amount of gold in order to fuel all this for the time that she has those abilities. Izzy, she's a god binder. She basically can commune with 12 different gods with 12 different personalities that sort of, you know, demand a fee or something, or favors. So she basically owes them for fantastical feats. However, you know, she has to pay back once in a while, and it can hurt or help the party. There's Matt. He is a grief knight, so he picks up a sword for the grief. The more sad he is, the more powerful he is. And it's kind of like the Green Lantern spectrum, but with swords. So there's a whole holy order of knights as well. And then there's Chuck. He's like a jerky kind of guy. He doesn't want to put too much effort into his character, but he has a lot of luck. He's the fool. As long as he, I don't know if his power is foolhardy, but basically he's also really lucky and buff and like hard to kill, basically. So all of them get together in order to become part of this game called Die. However, it sucks them in Narnia style, and essentially they disappear for 2 years and they return. However, Solomon does not return with them, and Angela's missing an arm. So the police don't really know what to do. Many years pass. It's now 2018, and all of them are adults now. They're all sort of burnouts, I guess. Some of them are divorced mostly. Some of them have kids. Chuck's a writer. He's rich and has 3 marriages and kids he doesn't talk to. Matt has 2 children, and he's trying to, you know, most of them work in sort of education, I notice. Angela's a coder. Dominic's still a man. And they all basically are just, you know, they're all in like their 30s and 40s, so they're all trying to basically just keep on trucking. However, they get a signal that Soul still might be alive in the fantasy world. So they go to this place in order to find out what happened, and they get sucked back in. So this story is different from just fantasy Jumanji or fantasy Narnia, because we're not focusing on the original story. You know, with Narnia and Jumanji, usually as teenagers or kids, they do an adventure and then they win the game and then they go back and then that's it, right? It's kind of like you can use what you learned, and the fantasy world is the coming of age sort of adventure story. This is different. It's more angsty because they already did the story. They escaped and then they grew up and then they have to go back. So now they have stakes because they don't want to be in the game. They want to go back to their kids, and it's a really interesting concept because it's really focused on world building and character development, which I really like. There is some action, you know. You'll get the obligatory, oh, we're in a room full of creatures, let's fight them all. But all of their different abilities come with handicaps when they're in the world that they created, basically when they created their character sheets. But also there's a lot of factions and different elements of the world that they sort of intermingled with when they were there like 18 years ago, and then now they're, or more than 18 years ago, I think it was like maybe 24 years ago. But either way, they have to basically return to the sins of their past in this fantasy world that they didn't take too seriously when they were kids, but now things have changed over the last 2 decades, and Saul is there and he's lost his mind. He wants to basically give them the adventure, the true fun adventure they never had. So he defeated the Grand Master while they were all back in the real world, and then he became insane and took over and became a sort of evil emperor sort of figure. So now he wants to sort of challenge them and give them a fun game, and they want to just go home. So it ends up being a really interesting sort of story, and all the world building is really cool too. All the different caveats of their powers. For example, Ash, she can control one person at a time, maybe up to 4. However, in the world, dictators are considered like, really, they're supposed to be tied down to a higher power so that they don't become too powerful. So she's sort of vilified because she's a rogue dictator. So she's considered like very dangerous in this world. They don't trust her. They send the deaf people to keep an eye on her because she can't control them if they can't hear commands and stuff like that. And then Angela as a Neo, she has a lot of angst because she had kids and now she's away from them, and she's got to collect gold in order to be useful for the party, but it's hard to do. And then Matt, he's a grief knight, so he's got to deal with the Holy Order of the Knights or whatever, as well as he can only be buffed up whenever he thinks of something sad. But the grief sword or whatever is a metaphor for the sort of sadness that he had when he was younger because he lost his mom. So the 2 years that he had to spend in the fantasy world with this sword that feeds off of him like a parasite, he didn't like that, but it helped him. And now he's got to use it again, and he doesn't want to. And then, let's see, Chuck's kind of the same. He's kind of a burnout. And then Izzy's sort of the same too. She kind of doesn't want to leave though because she doesn't have much going on in the real world. So the fractured sort of party ends up being the main sort of conflict, but there's also all these other elements and cool world building things like the influences of that Solomon used to build this world after he got stuck. And it's pretty solid. All 4 volumes are really good. And the new one called Diloaded is going to be a continuation, not a new story. So I'm curious to see where they'll take it because they didn't explore too much of the Earth side of things. It was mostly just, fantasy stuff, and then they go back to Earth and they quickly go back to the fantasy world. So most of the story, like 80 to 90% of the story, is in the fantasy world of Die, and the rest of it's sort of just like threadbare, like, oh, I have kids in the real world or whatever. So overall, it's a really strong comic book series. I really enjoyed it. I will definitely be checking out the sequel. Those are my thoughts on Die by Kieron Gillen.